a Jewish grandmother ordered a hit on her son-in-law after a contentious divorce with her daughter. There's been multiple trials, multiple convictions, but now the godmother faces her own trial for murder. We are going to analyze a lot of testimony from previous witnesses at the other trials. But here's a quick summary. The story of the Florida Jewish godmother is fascinating. Donna Adelson is the boss and eventually orchestrated a hit on her son-in-law after he divorced her daughter. Dan's a Harvard-educated lawyer. He was working as a professor at Florida State University. The real issue was Florida State is located in northern Florida. Wendy was used to the southern Florida life, and her mom was used to being in charge of both of her kids. Charlie was a hard-working playboy. He had a lot of money. He was driving around a Ferrari, banging a lot of floozies. He was also very protective of his sister and was in constant conflict with Dan Markel. After a long contentious divorce between Wendy and Dan, the courts decided that Wendy would have to remain in northern Florida with the kids. During the divorce, the godmother tried the best she could to defeat Dan Markel, and we're going to see that throughout this series. After all else failed, the godmother ordered a hit of Dan Markel, and he ended up being shot in the front of his house in northern Florida. To facilitate the hit, the godmother went to her son, Charlie, who was dating many floozies at the time. This girl, Katie, here was one of the floozies that Charlie was dating. And when the godmother ordered the hit, Charlie thought of her straight away because she was dating a former gang member. The gang member's name was Sigfredo. Him and his Latin King buddy went up to northern Florida and shot and killed Dan Markel. Eventually, Sigfredo, Katie, and Charlie have all been found guilty and are all serving life sentences. Wendy Adelson was never charged with a crime, but there is controversy surrounding whether or not she knew about this crime. The godmother is about to stand trial for her life in the coming months. Multiple trials already took place, and we're going to analyze first Charlie Adelson's testimony at his trial for which he was found guilty. Today we're going to simply grade old Charlie boy on his performance. If he answers a question properly, we'll indicate right on the scoreboard. If he answers the question incorrectly, we're simply going to give him a wrong. In order to get a wrong answer, he either answered the question that can be answered in a simple yes or no with something other than yes or no. We're going to look out for that. And there's various other reasons you get a question wrong. I'll go through them as we analyze old Charlie boy here on the stand.
Adelson, is it doctor?
It is, yes.
All right, doctor.
That's the first question, and it's actually an important question. She's showing some respect to the doctor, and he could have answered yes or no, but I'm going to give that to him as a right answer.
Have you ever heard the saying that the simplest explanation is always the most likely? Have you heard that?
I've heard that theory before, yeah.
That could have been answered in a simple yes or no. I've heard that theory before. Is not a yes or no. Technically, it's a wrong answer, but I'm going to give it to him right because it's just a basic foundation question.
Was your explanation to the jury over the last little over a day the simplest explanation?
It was the truth.
Wrong answer, Charlie boy. Again, he thinks he got a 90%. Was your answer the most simplest answer? Yes or no? He said it's the truth. Right there, he's being combative. That is an absolute wrong response. Poor planning, poor performance by Charlie.
I mean, you have a thorough explanation. Would you agree with that?
I told you what happened.
Wrong answer. He's being combative already. I told you what happened. If you're on the jury now and you start to hear these non-responsive combative answers, you're going to hate this guy. And the law shouldn't come down to whether you like or hate the guy, but if you are properly prepared to testify, you would not have these non-responsive answers. That's another wrong answer by old Charlie boy, who believes he got 90% correct.
Do you agree that the only problem with having an explanation for everything is that there's just so many explanations?
There's no explanation. I explained what happened.
I want to go through some of that. You claim that you were extorted on July 18th, 2014 by Catherine Magbanua and also in the background some Latin kings, probably Garcia and Rivera, right? Is that accurate?
No, I wasn't extorted by Catherine Magbanua.
You weren't?
Okay, that's not what I believed in 2014.
Okay, I'm sorry. I understood you to say you believe that today.
Today I do, yes.
All right, so who extorted you?
I believe that it was Catherine Magbanua's friend that she ran her mouth to.
Okay.
And that's 2014.
Right, but as you sit here today, you think it's Magbanua, Garcia, and Rivera. Is that accurate?
No, that's not accurate.
Okay. Who extorted you?
As I sit here today, I believe that it was Catherine Magbanua, and I believe Sigfredo Garcia, but I don't know for sure. I was never there when she was ever talking to him, so I don't know if he was in on it with her or not.
All right.
She only asked who, not how, not where, not when. Whenever you give your opponent additional information, it can only be used to harm you, especially when you can get out of the answer by simply stating the names. He didn't. That's why he's going to get a negative for that one.
At the time, though, you did not think she was guilty. We got that right. The time of the extortion.
In 2014?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Okay. And then so exactly when you found...
He gets a negative there because he's asking a question. If you believe that the question is incorrect, you say no. Your attorney will then clarify that on the redirect.
Would be, I think you said, her trial.
That I suspected that she was not telling me the truth and she was a part of it was in 2019.
At her trial?
Yes.
All right. And so she was arrested in 2016, right?
Yes.
All right. So for 3 years, she was in the Leon County Jail awaiting trial, yes?
She was there.
And you believed she was in.
Even though slight answer, she was there, is not proper. She's asking a yes or no question. If you give me anything but yes or no, you're going to get it wrong. And that means you failed to prepare properly.
Innocent.
Yes.
And you had this whole explanation to assist with exonerating her, right?
I have the truth of what happened, yes.
But you didn't offer the truth of what happened, did you?
Nobody came to me. I thought the truth would come out.
Does someone have to come to you?
I was told not to.
Do you see how important it is? He could have gotten away with a yes or no. He then came up with his brilliant explanation. The dentist is going to outsmart this little hottie prosecutor who's doing a fabulous job. By adding that extra information, you're giving your opponent additional ammunition to ask questions about what you just said, which you never had to say. He could have answered that question in a simple yes or no.
To talk to Katie and not to talk to anybody about this case by counsel.
On day one, which is July 18th, 2014, she is the only one that physically contacted you to conduct this extortion. Am I correct in that?
Yes, you are.
So you never actually had any contact with any Latin King?
No.
No phone calls?
No phone calls.
No texts?
No.
No letters?
Well, in 2016, you're talking about in 14, right?
I'm talking about the first...
Do not ask questions back. Answer yes or no. Allow your attorney, when he redirects, to actually ask the questions to clarify.
Layer of the extortion. Did you have any contact with the thugs that were getting your money for 2 years?
No.
Yes and no.
Did
Good
anybody
job.
put a gun to your head?
I was told that I would be killed in 48 hours if I didn't pay up.
Do you see that? The answer is no, and you can let it go. Don't give her any more ammunition, Charlie. We don't need to hear your bullshit explanation. No is the answer, in a calm, simple manner.
I heard you say that, but my question is, did anyone put a gun to your head?
You asked me, did anyone pull a gun on me?
That's what
Is
I
that
asked
your
you.
question?
Don't answer a question with a question, Charlie. That's an absolute no.
No, nobody pulled a firearm on me.
All right, so when Catherine Magbanua came to you on July 18th and said, open the safe and give me all your money, she was not armed.
She was not carrying a gun that day,
And
no.
were you armed at that time? Did you have a weapon in your home?
Again, she may have had a knife. She may have had something else. Charlie could have easily said no, but he didn't. And you may seem like I'm being real nitpicking here, but this is how you win cases. By being honest and by being simple and being authentic. Charlie has an excuse and a reason for every single question, and that turns people off. Those are indicators of deception, which the jury will eventually pick up on. He thinks he's smarter than everyone else with every single response. He was not trained properly, in my opinion, and he did not perform well so far.
I had weapons in my safe, yes.
Were you led to believe or told that the bad guys are outside, right outside your apartment or your residence?
No, but I was led to believe what they did to Dan they were going to do to me.
more information offered. He could have ended it with a yes or no there. Instead, he had to give his reasoning. So when you're sitting in your cell, Charlie, whining to your mom or dad, let it be known that you are doing horribly so far, and we just got started.
I heard you say that, but my question is, did she say, like, the car's running, I'm going to take the money out there to him right now?
No, she never told me that they were waiting for me outside my house.
In fact, she stayed the night with you, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
And didn't exit your house with your $138,000 until the next day, right?
Correct.
The $138,000, was that stapled into $1,000 increments?
Each packet was $1,000, and had a staple in it.
And stapling money's a little unusual. Would you agree with that?
For me, it wasn't unusual. That's what I did.
Right, but nobody else does it. That's why I'm suggesting it's unusual.
I've never questioned people into how they keep their money, whether they keep it with a staple or a paper clip or an envelope. I just know what I do.
Again, it's an odd question, but he could say no, and he should say no. Now he's offering other methods because the money that was used to pay the killers was stapled in $1,000 increments. That's something that's weird. We all know it's weird, and it's a big piece of evidence here, but by simply saying no or yes, he could have moved on. Now he's giving him more information.
Would you agree, Doctor, that it's a compelling piece of evidence that the killers were paid in stapled money and came up with that information in this case?
It's not compelling. The people who extorted me and got my money got it from my house, and it was stapled at my house.
They had to have gotten it from you, right? Because it was stapled.
If they got it from Katie, they got it from me.
So it had to be some kind of, I paid, but I did it under duress, based on that piece of evidence, right? That had to be built into your defense.
I was extorted, and I paid the money.
Katie comes in, and she's in a panic, and she tells you what's happened. And I need all the money in your safe right now. Do you suspect that maybe she's working with the police at that point? Maybe she's trying to set you up?
No,
yes
she
or no?
didn't say I need all the money in your safe. That's not what she said.
Did she take all the money in your safe?
I cleaned out all the money in my safe and handed it to her.
Do you see how poorly he's performing right now? I have 14 correct and 28 no. His attorney said we only need to get to 70% for us to walk out of here. Charlie told his mommy he did 90%.
Right. Why did you do that?
Because I was being extorted for $250,000.
But why didn't you? The bump was only $5,000, and you immediately became suspicious and questioning and had all these conversations and deliberations about what to do about it for days. When Katie comes to you, you just open the safe and give her the money, right?
That's what I did, and there's a big difference between the two.
Okay, well, the way that it was done to you, is that the way it's done?
You have to be more specific, please.
Well, on the wire, you say repeatedly, that's not the way it's done. You knew that the undercover agent was law enforcement, or at least strongly suspected, because that's not the way it's done. And my question to you is, since you're an expert on extortion, because you've been extorted before and that's how you knew that's not the way it's done, is this the way it's done? Do extortionists send a girlfriend of their victim to collect their extortion money?
Yes or
Is that
no?
the way it's done, Doctor?
I'm telling you what happened to me, and I was told that if I didn't pay in 48 hours, I would be killed. The person that came and extorted my mom, was not the same approach as what happened to me.
Is that the only?
Do you see how poor of an answer that is? It's a defensive answer. It should have been answered in a yes or no. Allow your attorney to clarify. Now you gave additional information, this sob story, this is how they did my mom. No, you don't answer like that. When you have a client, you should simulate so much to the point where when they get on the stand, they understand the concept of saying yes or no. You want to know a percentage. And they say, Vince, what does 70% mean when his attorney told him that we need to get to 70%? That means you got to get about 70% right. And when we say right, we mean truthful, accurate, and responsive, meaning yes or no questions are answered with a yes or no answer. The more information you put in after a yes or no, the more you're allowing your opponent to come after you, and the more the jury is going to dislike you because they see right through your bullshit. Charlie, when you eventually see this, you're going to understand they saw right through you because you performed so poorly on the stand. Questions that call for a yes or no answer should be answered with a simple yes or no.
That's the only way it's done? They send the girlfriend?
It's the only time I've ever been extorted like that.
Okay. And
Another bad answer, another sob story. Woe is me.
they come in and they say, we need $1/3 of $1 million.
You need to pay $1/3 of $1 million.
You need to pay $1/3 of $1 million. Why not $1 million?
Could answer that with a yes or no.
Because when I had told to Katie that the $1 million offer for Dan Markel, I said I was going to pay $1/3 and when she asked me, do you have that much money? And I said, yeah, I could pay it in cash. So she took it as I had cash, and she knew I had a ton of cash in my safe. So she thought I had the cash. I didn't have all that cash. So that's where I'm assuming they got the $1/3 from.
But the offer that she bragged about was $1 million offer, isn't that right? That she ran her mouth about.
I was never there when she spoke to her friend.
Okay, was it $1 million offer?
The offer was that $1 million was going to be paid, and
The question was it a $1 million offer? Yes or no? Charlie wants to give his explanation. This is not the time. This is an absolute poor answer. He's crying in his cell to his mommy saying he did 90%. It's a delusion right now. It's about 14 to 37. That's the ratio right now. You're not even close to 50%, and you're just getting started.
I was going to pay $1/3
And weren't you going to cover Wendy's third as well?
No, not at all. I was going to cover my third.
Didn't your lawyer say in an opening statement that you were going to cover the whole thing? Or Wendy's third?
No, I was sitting here. I heard what he said. Charlie was going to pay $1/3
All right. And so the offer was $1 million offer, and that's what you told Katie, along with the fact that you were going to cover the third.
I was telling her that I was going to pay $1/3 yeah.
Should have been answered in a yes or no, and again, another explanation. The last thing we want to hear is someone giving explanation to questions that can be answered with a yes or no. This is cross-examination.
And then one day, if my sister was able to, she was going to pay me back.
And then you didn't
More information that he offered that wasn't even asked.
have the amount of money that was being demanded at the time, right?
No, I only had what I had.
All right. And at that point, the blackmailer, Catherine Magbanowa, negotiates some type of layaway plan for you to complete the extortion with the Latin Kings?
Okay, Katie wasn't the blackmailer, and Katie wasn't the one who was extorting me.
Then say no. He wants so desperately to tell his bullshit story that he can't answer the question yes or no, and this is poor planning or poor execution.
Didn't you just tell this jury that Katie was the blackmailer? You realized it in 2019.
I had thought that when you were just talking, you were talking about 2014. You were talking about that night,
Okay.
so that night happened in
Doctor.
2014.
Okay.
Then simply say no and allow your attorney to clarify. Now you're debating with the person who's questioning you. And I know you're going to see this, Charlie. It is poor how you did. I don't know if you were taught this. I don't know if you were simulated to answer like this, or I don't know if you disregarded everything you were taught. But this is absolutely poor performance.
We all know now, because you have revealed the puzzle piece. She's a blackmailer. Can we agree on that?
I believe, sitting here in 2023,
Yes.
that she was in on the extortion for
Yes.
God damn, Charlie. You're being so combative. You're going to disrupt the entire jury. They're not going to focus on your bullshit story. They're focusing on you. Your body language is fake. Your responses are combative. There's an excuse for every question that can be answered with a yes or a no. I'm only grading you on your technicalities. Every time a question can be answered with a yes or no, you get a wrong answer if you offer more than a yes or no.
So is it okay if I refer to her as a blackmailer?
sure. I think there's a difference between blackmail and extortion, but yeah,
Okay.
sitting here today, we can, sure.
We'll refer to her as an extortionist. So this woman, the extortionist, is going to do you a solid by negotiating with the Latin Kings for you to get on a payment plan for the extortion.
Yes
Isn't
or no?
that what happened?
what you're doing is you're taking what we know in 2003 and trying to say, this is what I knew in 2014.
Did she?
Horrible answer. Poor performance. Poor training. I don't even know what you're doing here, Charlie. But the fact is, you're sitting in your cell crying, claiming you did 90%? You didn't even come close, my man. Unless you come back strong, you did horribly.
Put you on a payment plan.
Yes, she said, because I didn't have the money, she said, asked me if I could pay $3,000 a month in 2014.
This is unbelievable. She's just saying yes or no in terms of her question, and you can't even answer with a simple yes or no.
And I said, yes, I can.
Did you hear any of the conversation where she was making these negotiations on your behalf?
No, when she said, I'm going to go check with my friend and if that's okay with him, she took her purse, took her keys, took her cell phone, she walked out of my front door, closed the door behind her, and I sat in my living room, and she came back about 5 minutes later.
Was any of that information asked? Absolutely not. You're just handing your opponent bullets to shoot at you in a shootout. When you give more information than a yes or no, that question simply could have been asked in a yes or no. I don't even know what Charlie is doing. This performance is so bad. He doesn't really stand the chance unless something changes.
You didn't want to talk to the guy yourself?
No, I didn't even think of that. But she went outside to call him.
Again, yes or no. I didn't think about that. And then you tell your opponent she went outside to call him. So now you got to figure out that story. She went outside. She could start questioning about how long was she outside? Who did she talk to? Did you overhear it? All these other questions can be asked because you failed to properly answer the question.
All right, and then the two of you took a Xanax and went to sleep.
Well, I took a Xanax. I don't know if she took one out of the bottle, but I definitely did.
And the next morning, she left with your money, right?
She left about 8:30 the next morning.
Do you hear that? And what if that's a critical piece of information? The next morning she left with your money. Yes or no? Yes is the answer. But she left at 8:30. No one asked you what time she left. Do you understand how poor Charlie is performing here?
July 19th, 2014.
Correct.
Let's talk about what you did that day. You did not report this to the police because you were in fear, correct?
Absolutely.
And you didn't report this to Wendy, even though, according to you, her life was in danger too, correct?
Potentially, but I planned on paying the extortion every month.
All right.
You can now predict what Charlie's going to do. In his mind, he believes that he can explain away everything. When you have clients that are generally overeducated, or if they're narcissistic or sociopathic, you have to break them like a wild horse. That means days, months, even years of simulation until they understand to simply answer a yes or no question with a response that's either yes or no.
But you did go to the gym that morning, right? Could we show that text, please? Were you able to go to the gym the next morning?
I absolutely didn't leave the house. I worked it out at Nova Southeastern Gym, and you can check the gym records. I was never there.
Okay. Did you say you were going to the gym?
I said I was, yeah.
But you didn't actually go?
No, I didn't leave the house.
All right. So would you agree, Doctor, and we'll refresh your memory with them if we can, that the text messages that were exchanged between yourself and Catherine McBanoa on the morning after this exchange of money were inconsistent with your extortion theory?
They were inconsistent with how I was feeling.
They don't appear to look like you just gave her $138,000 under duress, do they?
She told me the last thing she said to me before she left the house is, can we just pretend like this never even happened? So when I sent her that message, I was trying to show her, like, I'm trying to forget all about it.
Yeah, you were just...
He is so used to keeping dolts around that will listen to any bullshit that he spews. Charlie could have had a chance had he answered his cross-examination questions properly. A lot of this comes down to cross-examination of the defendant, and he is performing so poorly. Charlie, when you sit there in your cell and you see this, understand you are performing so bad. You're not even close to 30%.
Demonstrating to her that you would agree to pretend nothing happened. right?
Absolutely. That's what she asked me to do, and that's what I tried to do.
All right. So the text messages aren't what they appear to be. It's a beautiful day. I'm going to the pool. I'm going to the beach. I'm going to the gym. None of that is what it appears to be. It's something else.
I absolutely did not go to the gym. I was trying to show her that I was, pretending like nothing ever happened and looking past it.
And there's nothing on the wire. All those hours of you talking. There is nothing on the wire about the extortion, this layer 1 of extortion, because she told you not to talk about it, right?
She told me to never talk about anything to anyone or her. She never wanted to hear about it again.
And yesterday, in your testimony, between you and your attorney, you mentioned the word extortion 123 times. Would you take my word for that?
I'm sure it came up a lot.
Okay.
There's another important aspect of testifying. A lot of clients want to be perfect on the stand. It's more important to be truthful. Concede the facts that are true. She said yesterday, you said the word extortion X amount of times. Would you agree with that? Yes. Unless, of course, the number is somewhat relevant. It makes no difference if you said 114 or 132. When you concede, you are obviously being credible if you are credible, but you move things along. It's the proper answer, and you're more believable. Everyone in that jury has lied. Every human ape lies. Concede to basic information. Don't fight every single question. This is a horrible performance so far by Charlie, and we're just a little ways in.
But nowhere, even in the midst of this whole second extortion, it's happening again. It's an extension of the same thing. Do you mention anything about this layer 1 of the extortion? Do you?
Yes, actually I did.
Okay.
If you pull up the video from Matsuri when I was sitting with my dad, and I said, and the funny thing is, that's what I whispered in his ear.
Right, but we can't.
No, Charlie. He's disagreeing. The answer would then be yes. Let her ask where or why. When you offer an excuse, it's less believable. Allow your attorneys to come back and do it. We don't need you to do that. This should have been taught and trained to him before he got on the stand.
Hear that.
Right, because that's my point. I never wanted anybody to hear what had happened. I never wanted the police to come talk to me. But if you put up that video, you'll actually see me saying that it's my dad's ear, and that's why I went in and said it. And that's what we were talking about at the time. So
At Matsuri, the only time you mention the extortion, it's in a whisper that is not picked up by the microphones, right?
Intentionally, yes.
Yes. And that was intentional at the time, but it sucks for your defense, right? Because that would be a huge piece of evidence for you to show this jury, wouldn't it?
No, I think you'd come up with a reason why that I said it anyway.
Listen to that combative little asshole, Charlie. No matter what I said, you're going to come up with a reason why it's wrong. This is a horrible performance.
There's nobody to corroborate this testimony?
There is.
Okay. You talked about it again out in the parking lot, right? Wasn't that your testimony?
Yes, we spoke in the parking lot.
Okay, so you did talk about the extortion.
That's
You just didn't do it in a way that it was captured on any of the recordings in this case.
well, we spoke when we had privacy.
Well, you had privacy on the phone, right?
When?
Do you see how offering more information harms you? He could have answered that last question with a yes or no, and he offered a specific way. Let's hear that again.
You did talk about the extortion.
That's
You just didn't do it in a way that it was captured on any of the recordings in this case.
well, we spoke when we had privacy.
Well, you had privacy on the phone, right?
When?
Instead of just saying yes or no, he said he spoke when we had privacy. Now he gives a nice bullet to the prosecutor, who then used it against him. Well, you had privacy on the phone. Oh, when? What? When? Look at old Charlie boy. Very poor performance, because you could have avoided this question, Charlie, by simply knowing and executing a proper plan to say yes or no when it's called for.
At least you thought you had privacy on the phone. Every time when you were talking on the phone for hundreds of hours on this wire.
There's always a chance that I was being listened to.
Okay. Well, there was a chance you were being listened to when you whispered in Dad's ear, right? But you said it. I mean, you were talking
Well,
about it.
I whispered real quietly into his ear, so I thought I had private.
This is so poor, Charlie. I don't know who trained you. I don't know who represented you. I don't know who taught you this method, but it is horrible. You are doing horribly. And when I say doing horribly, that means you could have done so much better. Look at the score right now. 17 to 69. 69 times you've been wrong so far.
So at that point, I thought I had privacy.
And Catherine Magbanua and you discussed this first layer of extortion in the car outside of Dolce Vita too, right?
That's when I found out everything that was going on, and she opened up when I confronted her.
But if this jury could hear that conversation recorded, we would all be hearing basically what you're telling us, that there was an extortion effort that predated the undercover operation. Wouldn't we?
Because I was trying to see if Sigfredo was behind the extortion of my mom, because I knew he was behind. I always had a feeling he was behind what happened to me, and she was having this explosive fight with him, and it was going on the same exact time that my mom started getting extorted, so I thought that he was going after my mom.
Don't you wish that that conversation in the car had been recorded?
I don't know.
Wouldn't it prove your theory?
Yeah.
That you're talking about, the
if I
prior
think about
extortion.
it, then you'd know exactly what happened back then.
But unfortunately, it wasn't recorded, and then everything that was recorded inside the restaurant, you don't mention it, right?
I'm speaking very carefully. I mean, I was still, even when I was in the car with Katie, she was doing most of the talking. That was the first time.
She didn't ask anything about that. If you're an attorney representing him, you must be blowing your mind out right now. Now again, maybe this was their plan, their one shot, because he was so guilty. But this is very bad. Every question for which he answers wrong is an opportunity missed by old Charlie Boy here. And you got to remember, Charlie Boy was living the great life. You see those prosecutors over there, they're hot. But guess what? Those girls weren't hot enough for old Charlie Boy. He's driving around a Ferrari, cash in his safe, and he decided to have his brother-in-law killed?
He really opened up, and I think I caught her off guard. I was still, even when I spoke to her in the car, I was real careful. I said, was T behind what happened to me? Like, I wouldn't even say the words to her when I was in the car.
Okay, was T behind what happened to me? Do you say anything anywhere on the wire about referencing what happened to me? Meaning, what happened to me before?
She's using exactly what he offered, which he didn't need to now further ask questions to see how bad he's performing.
No, because that was the only time I ever confronted her. But I did actually when I would be on the wire.
And look at that. He conflicts himself. A question that should have never been asked, but for Charlie failing the question and giving more, now he just contradicted himself right here in front of everybody.
With my mom, and I would say it's not the same person. Like, that was in reference to what happened to me, and she knew that.
What call do you say it's not the same person?
Okay, you want to know what call? It was Tuesday the 26th. And I said it's at the end of the call. It was a 2-minute and something call.
April 26th?
April 26th, 2016. It was a 2-minute and something call. It was towards the very end.
A lot of times intellectuals have a specific date and time in their mind when something happened and they know they're going to use it. This is a forced use of something specific. I don't believe whatever he's saying. I don't believe it applies to this answer. He's been waiting to give this one little golden nugget that he believes is going to help him out. That's not what was asked.
And I go, I know it's not done like this. It's 48 hours, just enough time. It's not the same person. So you can look it up.
Okay, I'm with you. It's not the same person you were referencing as the person that blackmailed me years ago. And has been blackmailing me for years.
Yeah.
That's what you meant.
It's not the same person that's extorting me, correct.
All right. So I want to go back to Wendy.
A little peer over to the jury to see if they're believing his bullshit. They're not. He believes they are. Crying in his cell after being convicted, he believed he performed over 90%. The fact that his attorneys told him that he performed over the 70% they needed is insane.
Wendy is in the process of relocating from Tallahassee to South Florida, basically the day that this is going on, day after the money drop, right?
They're packing up the car. They're coming back. Yeah.
Right. So she's going to be moving significantly closer to the killers that had threatened her life.
This what I don't. She wasn't planning it wasn't a permanent move or anything that was planned. I think she took a suitcase with her.
But she's your family member, yes. She's much closer to the one they've already killed than you, right?
Say it again?
She's much closer. She's got much deeper connections to the person they've already killed. That's Dan Markel, than you do.
Right.
I mean, there's a reason to fear for her safety because these killers have come, they've just killed Dan, and now they're saying they're going to kill another one. It could be Wendy, right?
She has no idea what's going on.
Exactly. But you let her move from Tallahassee to Miami where you knew the killers were located. That's my point. Do you agree with that?
The killers were able to find Dan Markel in Tallahassee. They have a car.
They were. But would you rather live in Tallahassee or in Miami if the killers are in Miami?
There's a great question that was brought on by Charlie's bad responses. And here's the time where I say about concession. He should concede the fact that if the killers are located in Miami and the person they want to kill is located 5 hours away, they're safer 5 hours away than being in Miami. From this performance, there's no way Charlie's going to concede to that. And that is poor planning and that's poor performance on the stand. Let's see.
I think if these people want to find you, they'll find you.
And there you go. Excuse, 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 and offering more than a yes or no answer and failing to concede. Very poor performance by old Charlie boy here.
I mean, I don't think, looking at Luis Rivera, I don't think.
And he's still talking. There's no more question pending. It should have been answered with a yes or no. He failed to concede. He failed to answer with a yes or no. This is a question that was derived because he failed to answer a yes or no in a previous question, and he's still blabbing.
I don't think a distance would stop him.
Okay. Where did Wendy and the boys live when she first moved to South Florida?
When she first moved to South Florida, she moved in with my parents into a small apartment. They actually had to get another apartment because that one was too small.
With your parents?
No one asked you the size of the apartment. That's why you get a negative for. I gave you a positive, but also giving you a negative. She asked where.
She moved in with them, yeah.
And I want to talk about the cameras. You bought cameras for the Adelson Institute and your home at Whale Harbor, right?
Yes.
The camera system? Yeah. All right. And what about Wendy's? I guess she didn't have a place. So, like, wherever she was staying with your parents, were cameras installed there as well at that same time frame that you installed these cameras?
No, I never told her what happened, but they lived in a very secure building.
And I hope you're all seeing now. The answer should have been no. We didn't ask how secure the building was. We didn't ask for an excuse why you didn't buy cameras for Wendy. We just asked, did she have cameras there, yes or no? And he failed again on a very simple question.
Isn't it true, Doctor, that you'd been planning to install those cameras for some time before the murder?
Yes or no?
I actually already had cameras at my house that I had installed in 2008. The technology from 2008 to 2014 had changed a lot.
Did anyone ask about the technology and how it changed? No. This is horrible. It's as if he wasn't prepared at all.
When it came to cameras.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think you mentioned all that on direct. I'm referring to this particular update that was done post-homicide. You were in communication with this camera guy, and I think your lawyer mentioned this. You had 84 text messages with him dating back to January 20th of 2014 in regards to the update that occurred post-murder. Do you agree with that?
I know. There was always talk that we were going to get cameras in the office, and we just never got around to it. When this happened, that week, within probably.
The question is, do you agree with the amount of text messages that were sent? Yes or no?
3 days, I called the camera guy up and I said, I want to get cameras in my house and my new cameras for my house, and I want to get cameras in my office. How soon can you come out and do it? And then he came out. I'd say 4 or 5 days after that, bought the equipment and installed it that week.
Did you hire a private investigator to help you with this whole problem you were having?
with the extortion?
Yes.
No, I didn't tell anybody.
Did you get a bodyguard?
No, I carried a gun on me, and I always sleep with a gun next to me in bed, and I carried a gun on my person and had a gun in my car at all times.
Did we ask that at all? She just asked if you hired a bodyguard, yes or no. At some point, if you're the attorney looking at this poor performance, you have to do whatever you can to stop this and then figure out why our training, our simulation didn't work. Or was he not properly simulated? Was he not properly trained? Charlie, you did horrendously. The questions you got right were very basic. The tough ones you're getting completely wrong. And the wrong questions are leading to even more questions, as we've seen. And we're going to stop it here, but we're not done with Charlie Boy. We're going to hear him crying to mommy saying, my attorney said if I do over 70%, we're walking out of here.
For him to tell me I did a 95% on the stand, he said to me, if you do a 70%, I'm driving you home. There's not a doubt in my mind. You do 70%, I'm driving you home. He said, that's all you got to get. He said, you got a 95 because this is the best you've ever testified.
My man, you didn't come close. Let's do some math here. 29 out of 118, you're at 24%, Charlie Boy. 24%. Round it up, I'll give you 25%. That means 75% of the questions you answered wrong. When you answer one question wrong, that means you're giving more ammunition to the prosecution. You answered 89 questions wrong. You're at 75% wrong. And she's just getting started. Part 2 will continue with old Charlie Boy here.